Hey, Hill City
What's
family.
up, Hill City family?
What's up? Thank you so much for joining us. We want to take a few minutes of your time to just communicate a lot of information and go over some very basic things with you, but we hope that it brings you peace and safety and some vision. And just know we have our notes in front of us, so we may look down a little bit just so we can make sure we can communicate our hearts clear to you and get across all the information that we need to.
Yes, this conversation is going to outline everything that we learned in 2020 and what we believe God is calling us to in this next season. So buckle up. We're going to be going through a lot of goals, but those goals will help to lay the groundwork for what we believe God is going to pivot us into, which is a relaunch of Hill City Church on Easter Sunday. And we really can't wait for that. This season has been very complex. It's been kind of hard in a lot of ways, but we've also learned a lot. And God's actually built into us more than the world has taken away. And I hope that you guys see that. But the goal of this video is simple. We will begin connecting that which we loved about our history with that which is thoroughly working in our present. And that's the goal of the next 3 months of Hill City. And we're asking everybody to get on board with us. So that's the purpose of this, right? We want to get our heart right in sync with what God is doing on the earth, right?
Yes, and we understand this season has been very complex for everybody. You always use that word, and I love that. And from everybody that I talk to, emotions are kind of up and down on a daily basis, and there's a lot happening. And we really, Zack is an amazing pastor, an awesome leader, and we know the best is yet to come for Hill City Church. We have so much in front of us, and yes, our goal is to keep our hearts in sync with God, and that is all that we are doing, is just praying and asking God to continue to show us, and we are excited for what the future holds. So keeping our hearts in sync with God, no matter where your emotions lie, no matter what the chaos and everything that's happening in the world, let's do our best to keep our hearts in sync with God as we move together as a church.
Yeah, that's so good, Laura. And in this video, we're going to recap what we learned in 2020. We're going to talk about our present realities and the circumstances that we're facing. And this in order that you can pray and understand the complexities that we have as leaders. Let me just put a sidebar. There's never been a time like this in American church history. Right? This has happened in the world. But it's been a complicated time. And you know what? Instead of doing our ba-ba-bas to each other, let's take our hearts to God. Let's take the complexities that we feel in this time to God. We actually need you to be praying for us. Many times in the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul said, pray for us for boldness. Come on, pray for us for boldness as we lean into the heart of God and keep our hearts in sync with His. So we're going to talk about our present realities, and we need prayer there. And then we're going to talk about what we see for 2021. So let's just do a quick recap of 2020. Does that sound good to you, Laura?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Because there were, in every season, you can define wins. You can step back and say, you know what? We know there was so much that happened, but what can we learn? And what did God do? And some of our favorite moments, really special moments happened.
Hey, my favorite moment, I'm just going to be honest, we had our open air gatherings.
Yeah.
And so, we weren't able to meet for a couple months. The first open air gathering was kind of awkward to me. It was like we didn't know what to do when we gathered, and then when we would get in the lead sale facility here and worship, it was like, can we touch each other? What do we do? So it was just, we had to battle through that awkwardness, but it was a lot of fun. The third one, though, by the time we hit our stride by the third one.
Our team was flexible.
My favorite
moment.
Our team was great.
Yes.
But I'm just gonna put it on you for a second.
Okay.
My favorite moment is I'm just in message mode, and I'm walking around, and I'm like, I don't have the end of this. I felt like I did, but it's not right. And I said, Lord, do you have anything on your heart? And she's like, I do, but I'm kind of insecure about it. It's like, just go for it. So Lauren gets a microphone, and she just starts to preach a message of repentance. And I'm like, why did I just ever do this from the beginning? But what really stuck out to me during that time is that we had grown men with their families coming to the altar, rededicating their lives to the Lord, dedicating their families to the Lord. It wasn't my favorite moments aren't necessarily what we as a team and family did. It's what God did. It's the God moments in this. It's what I've heard from Pete Nix watching some random video in London, and connecting and God doing a huge work in his heart during this season.
Just randomly finding Hill City.
Yeah, completely. It's the guys in our church anywhere group who not only say man, I've made good friends, but no, God is doing something in my life right now. I've never had this happen to me before. And in other groups that we've been in contact with. That's my favorite. What about you, baby?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we all realize that we don't need a lot for God to move.
Yeah.
We don't need much.
Yes.
We gathered on a hill with not a lot, and God showed up.
We had good restroom facilities.
We did.
That's important.
Oh yeah, you did need good bodies. Yeah, for sure. But I think just seeing the flexibility of the team and us never doing videos before or any of that, and the team and our staff just being amazing and just being creative and still doing our best to make it happen. But the moments of, the Church Anywhere groups have been so powerful, where relationships have formed, and it's been my favorite thing to see is the relationships that have formed that has been really good. So although the challenges came, God still moved, and He's still on the throne, and He was still working.
Yeah, and so we found that God shows up in different ways. He can show up in the same way on a hill as He does in a middle school auditorium, as He does in a church building, but as He does in a home. He can show up the same way in the same place. But this season has really taught us that relationships are pivotal for our success as believers. We've always said, you were never created to do life alone. Yes. And we have found as leaders that people who've tried to do this season alone have really struggled in their hearts. But those who get gathered in community and continue to keep relationships fostered and pointed to the heart of God, those are the people who are really thriving.
They're doing better in this season. We have to fight for relationships, but we learned that we miss seeing the whole church family all the time and worshiping together. And we learned a new way to do church. Really, it was amazing. To see the team pivot. And 2020, although it struggles, we can look back and define some wins and be thankful that God is still God. Right?
So let's talk about some of our current realities, because there's a lot of questions out there that I'm sure that we need to answer, and you're probably going to be a little bit more savvy to what those questions are than I am. I'm like, in our house, we have a townhouse association. Somebody's like, whose responsibility is it to shovel the sidewalk? I'm like, just shovel the sidewalk. Why do we have to ask these questions? You know what I mean? That's the way it is. It doesn't take much information from me. So if I share anything and it needs clarified, full latitude to move into that. Okay?
Got it.
But our current realities, we haven't had a place to meet. Okay, and so Moon School has been so gracious in communicating to us.
Yeah, we do have a great relationship with them.
Yeah, we definitely do. But they also said to us that we can't meet until they can safely get back to school 5 days a week. And we have to honor that. I actually agree with that too, and I support that decision. But we also have to honor that. But the problem was, getting out of Moon, our Leedsdale facility, is far too small for us to actually meet.
It's such a blessing, but too small for everybody to get.
Yeah, and then also our land is too complicated to be able to develop. I've actually heard people say, why don't we just put a steel building up there? It's a lot more complicated with all of the township ordinances that we would have to walk.
And we're doing things behind the scenes that maybe you guys don't know, but we are taking some steps in that. And I am pumped about the future, so I think about our future building. I study architecture.
But it's not a viable option right now.
So I think we have to understand that reality. Not right now. Will it come? Yes. Are we there yet? No. We'll continue to take steps. We're not there yet.
We found that actually most of Hill City Church is a little bit split on gathering or not gathering. And it's really interesting. At the beginning of this, we sent out a survey to see where people were. And if there were 4 options, it was equally split between the 4 options. So we started to realize that no matter what decision that we made in this season, like many of you who are teachers, who are business people, who work on a job where you were shut down and now you're back in, like many of you, no decision that we could have made everybody happy. It was going to create a split. And we actually see this systemic issue within our culture right now. We've never been more divided as a culture. But I'm going to encourage you to not let the divisions of the culture define your divisions about what you believe about God. And sometimes whenever we have pressure squeezed, we're squeezed by the pressures of this world, who we really are comes out. And I just want to call you to live a life of character and live a life of trusting God regardless. When we're disappointed by men, we also find that what we believe about God comes out. So let's trust God. Let's continue to trust God regardless of all of these complexities. But we realized, hey,
we're not going to make everybody happy.
No,
and that's okay. We're here to follow God and keep our hearts in sync with Him.
That's right. We need to listen to the voice of God above everything else.
Yes.
And so, even when it comes to financially, the operations of the Hill City Church, we haven't had to lay off any staff. We haven't had, thank God, we have had about a 10% decrease in our giving and income. But I mean, that's kind of expect it because we're not gathering each week, if that makes sense, you know. But honestly, that doesn't even, it matters to me, but like hearing God's voice above all else matters, you know. Like we just need to do what God is calling us to do, and we believe that when we operate in the vision that God has for us, the provision is going to come.
Always.
So let's pivot back into what we see for 2021.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of questions out there. I want to spend a little bit of time on this, okay?
Yes.
So remember this, I said in the beginning that we are going to begin connecting that which we loved about our history with that which is currently working in our present.
Yep.
Okay, so there are aspects that we had to lay aside in the last season that we really loved. Like one of my favorite memories in the last season was our water baptism and worship night. We just worshiped God and we just water baptized, and it was like those gatherings are so pivotal.
Important.
And so we realized that it's not an either or. And I think a lot of times if we say in one season we're going to be doing this and the next, we forget that it's not either or, it's both and. It's not so black and white. Yes. So let's talk about that, okay? Here's what I want to see us do. Our anywhere groups, especially I'm calling out those in Cranberry right now. We've got 2 groups in Cranberry that are like tearing it up. The groups in Moon that are meeting. We've actually gotten feedback from these people like, we don't want to stop this. Like we don't want to go back to church as normal, you know. And we've actually found that many of the people in groups, it's not been a 100% success rate, but many of the people in these groups are actually saying, this has impacted me so much. I don't want to go back to church as usual. So we want to see a blend taking place. Right now we're looking for Hill City headquarters. And this upcoming Thursday, we're actually taking a second tour of a facility that we think is going to be suited for our future.
Because we understand we have to have a gathering place. It's important right now to gather.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so we found that many people want to, they like the option of meeting every week, but we don't feel that it's proper to require people to meet every week. God will move the same in a home as he will in a corporate setting. It'll be different, but it'll be similar. And yes, and these conversations, like with our Church Anywhere group, we ordered food. We stayed together this past Sunday until 4 o'clock or something like that. We just talked about what the Lord was doing in our lives. And with all my heart, I cannot go back to the season in the past where we don't have those moments taking place.
Relationships are so important.
It's so important. And I can't go back to just, let me just go into church. Let me just sit down. Let me hear a good message. Let me raise my left hand, get my worship on. You know, no,
relationships
we were meant for something so much deeper. And what I'm realizing is that our Church Anywhere groups are the goal. We want to start to see these Church Anywhere groups all over the hills of Pittsburgh. But we also have to have a way for people to gather each week, for there to be consistency. And let me even just share, in this next season, our goal is going to be to invest in children's and youth ministry as much as we possibly can. Now we believe that God is actually carving a new stream for what kids in youth ministry looks like. And we have a lot of vision on our heart. Lauren and I are super cautious to make sure to not interpret those things and to speak them too soon, you know, because we don't want to make empty promises. However, we believe that kids need to gather together, and young adults and teenagers need to gather together. So we want to invest in what that vision is going to be for the future.
Absolutely. Right? And one thing 2020 has taught us, which we've always said, is that relationships are so important. We have to be purposeful and we have to make connections, and we need each other. So that has taught us so much. Looking forward to the future, we're going to be more about that than ever, for sure.
You know, ultimately, as we look at the vision of the church, we see a healthy church in every neighborhood. We see a healthy youth ministry in every neighborhood. And I realize that this might be like a 20-year vision and a 20-year goal. But you have to know what you're called to. If you're called to be a part of the church that we're called to lead, you know, God is dealing with my heart about our neighborhood. And let me even say this, and some of you from my neighborhood might even be watching this right now. Don't worry, I'm not going to give too many details away. But God is moving in the neighborhoods right now. God is moving in your neighbor across the street. God is moving in your neighbor right down the street. There are people in front of us every single day who have deep issues inside of them that only God can heal. And the burden and the problem that I've had with a lot of what we do as a church, our church, many churches all over the place, is that we only reach 4%. So we have 4% of people who are like, oh, I go to church. They're like the de-churched people who are bitter about church. And listen, I love you if that's you. Like it's cool, but like we gotta help you through that. But this isn't the goal of this. Isn't taking back darkness. It's only causing one person to think, oh, what we're doing is working. But everybody's bouncing from one to the next, one to the next, one to the next.
We're not interested in that.
No, we don't. I want to reach the neighbors who are drinking themselves to sleep every night. I want to reach the neighbors who are struggling right now with racial reconciliation. I want to reach the neighbors that are in the neighborhoods right now who are going through, you hear them screaming through the walls because their marriages are so bad. Like, this is what we're called to. This is why
Yes.
Lauren and I left the prior season and entered into this season. It's not so we can create this nice gathering so people can come and be happy and say, okay, I got my worship on and I feel great about this.
Yes.
It's to actually take back darkness in the city of Pittsburgh. And so we realize that we have to have both and. We have to have gatherings and more frequent gatherings, multi-generational, multicultural worship nights where we come together, we experience the power of God. And those things are in our future, but we must never take off the mindset that we haven't created church to just be for us, that we are the church, we exist for the world. There are people right down the street who need the gospel of Jesus. So with everything in my heart, over the next couple of months, I want to build a culture where we give you the confidence that you can actually disciple somebody, that you can actually reach somebody in your neighborhood, and not only reach them with the gospel and just share the good news, but to actually disciple them and to take them along a journey to the heart of God. And I believe that if you're one step closer to the heart of God, you can take somebody who's one step further behind you toward the heart of God. As long as you're aimed toward the heart of God, that's really all that matters, and that's really what's going to produce life change, right?
It's so good, babe. And I've heard you so many times say it's going from like gathering, like come here, come to our church, come, and that's good. But if we're not going, it's like God is sending us out.
It's the purpose.
Yes,
it's the purpose of our gathering. We come in. Revival is like lungs.
Come on.
We breathe in. If we just held our breath and we just keep to ourselves, then we're gonna suffocate still. But if we breathe out and breathe in and breathe out and breathe in, we go out to the neighborhoods, we come back in, we get filled up, we go back out to the neighborhoods. This is what it's about. So our Church Anywhere groups are gonna pivot. A lot of them, they stay the same, but there are a lot of you right now who have leadership in your heart. And you actually you're sitting around a group and you know that God's calling you for more. That there are people in your neighborhood that you're like starting to realize like, wow, I've got a heart for this person. Like, man, I can't believe you can do something about it by replicating the environment that you've been in and opening that up to your neighborhood and creating that. Now, we are working on our structure and our strategy. And one of the biggest wins of 2020 was bringing Ben Rath on staff with us.
To help us work on the strategy and structure.
We slowly, that just moves methodically. Let's make these decisions. But man, he's been such a blessing to us. So I feel confident sharing my heart, knowing that now we'll be able to provide the infrastructure to take care of you.
Yes.
Like, that's all I care about.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to use you. I don't want to just like use you for my vision. Like, I want you to be used by God, and I want you to be cared for by our church family.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So good, babe.
Okay.
It does. So what's next, Pastor Zach?
Okay, so prayer. We have to pray. We have to pray. We obviously have some needs in front of us that we need the Lord to meet. We can shake every door, we can kick down every door, but what I've learned in life is that when we kick our own door open, we have to keep that foot in the door while God opens up another one. It's impossible to walk through two doors at once. We simply want God to open up that door for us, okay? So I'll get back to that in a second. Why don't we get through a couple of details of prayer?
Perfect. So we have a few dates for you that we really want you to join us. The first is January 20th at 9 p.m. on Facebook. Pastor Zach and I are going to be going live, talking about fasting and praying, and we have a whole great night planned out for Facebook Live. So make sure you join us on that night at 9 p.m. More details to follow. And then we are going to do an all-church fast and prayer from the 27th through the 31st. So that Facebook Live will link into the all-church fast and prayer for those days. And we're going to be talking a lot about specifically what we're going to be praying and believing God for the future of Hill City, for you personally, all of that stuff. And then the 31st, we're going to do a church-wide Zoom call and end the fast and prayer time with communion together on that Sunday morning. So those are the three things we want to point you to as next steps and encourage you to join us with.
So every year as we gather and pray during 21 days of fasting and prayer, we do 21 and I've realized that like not very many people make it a full 21. So we want to make this attainable for you.
Yeah, we do.
We want to pray. We want to teach you how to pray during these times. But every year that we do this, we actually ask you to take something that God's doing in your personal life and to believe God for breakthrough. Every single time that I've actually fasted and prayed, I've experienced breakthrough.
Absolutely.
Okay? And so we need a breakthrough as a church. And so what I don't want to negate the power of believing God for something in your personal life. But I am asking our church to get together and gather around these prayer points that we talked about today. I'm asking you to take these things to the heart of God, simply because I want God, I want you all, we want God's best, but I want you to see God move as well. We need to experience the faithfulness of God in this season. So this 3 months, it might be difficult, it might be tough, but we can do it. We can stick through it, and we're going to press through, and we are ultimately not going to trust the systems of man, but we're going to trust the heart of God. And He is going to lead us. We're going to get to the other side, and it's going to be even better than it was in the beginning. Amen. So I just hope that your heart's blessed. I hope that you have reassurance, and I cannot wait to continue to unpack some of this vision with you. Thanks for sticking with us during this time. You are amazing. We love you.
We love you guys. See ya.
See ya.